right, folks. Thought I'd do something different tonight. Last last week I talked about how the Palestinians are persecuting the uh, people call them the the descendants of black slaves in Palestine, which I believe are uh, the real Jews of the Bible, the real Israelites of the Bible. I want to say Jew. I want to say correct term Israelites of the Bible, and they're known as Beta Israel, right? And Beta Israelites are the Jews, the black Jews that were brought from Ethiopia to Israel by the Israelis, right? And because they believe that they are the Jews, just like it says up in prophecies from beyond the rivers of Cush, right? And they brought them to Israel, right? But there's a slight problem. Well, actually, a huge problem. When they brought them there, they've been persecuting them, right? And they've been. It's like I heard that the police pick at them, just like what's going on over here. So you bring them over from Africa, which they already were suffering, right? And you bring them to Israel because you believe they're the real Jews of the that they are the Israelites of the Bible, right? But then you only bring them there to persecute them, and so it's so strange. And I heard a lot of stuff about them, about the sterilization and the police brutality and them not finding a job, just being treated very poorly. Like you would think after they were persecuted, that they would treat the black Israelites well, but they're not doing that. So we're gonna get into this tonight, and we're gonna talk about the persecution that goes on with Beta Israel, aka the Ethiopian Jews that are over there in Israel right now. Okay, so and I'm going to use Chat GPT again here. It says the history. It says the history of Ethiopian Jews, often called the Beta Israel, is a powerful. Hey, Oscar Ferguson. Thank you for commenting, Oscar Ferguson. It said the history of Ethiopian Jews, often called Beta Israel in Israel, is a powerful and painful one. Though many were brought to Israel under the idea of fulfilling a Jewish return, over decades they've faced many forms of discrimination. Both okay, hold on. Israeli. Let me see. Where was I at? Let me just. Though many were brought to Israel under the idea of fulfilling a Jewish return, over decades, they face many forms of discrimination, both institutional and social. Below is a broad outline of that history, key events, and persistent challenges. If you want a deeper dive into a particular time period or issue, okay, let me see. Brief historical background, immigration and Ghana. For centuries, well, I want to get into that, but I'm going to address what you said. Let me see. I wonder if I can right now. Let me see. So I am here. Let's see. Chart. Japheth. Chart. Japheth. Japheth's descendant. Chart. What was that one that I really liked? That's not it. I want to find that Japheth chart. Okay. Okay. Okay, I got you. It's your opinion, but you're welcome to have your opinion, but like like Harry Rosenberg, there's a video of Harry Rosenberg. He's an Ashkenazi Jew, and even he at one point said, and I think he's a hero because that was really brave of him to say that. So I mean, I don't hate anybody. I love all people on my channel, but I do want to tell the truth about things. And Harry Rosenberg, he actually said that maybe that their people were converts, and that maybe the descendants of the slaves that were on the ships were the Israelites. But anyway, as you can see right here, they openly call themselves Ashkenazi Jews, right? And it says right here that the Ashkenaz are sons of Japheth. So there's that. So it's like Yah made it real easy. They openly call themselves Ashkenaz, but they're the sons of Japheth, right? Other people try to say Esau, but I believe that Esau thing is a lie. That's not true. Esau is definitely Saudi Arabia. So they can forget trying to hate on Europeans like that and say that they're the sons of Esau, which is not true. But yeah. And it reminds me of what's that? Genesis 9. Genesis 9:27. This is 9:27. Pay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Right here it says, let me see. Because as you can see, it says, right, as you can see here, it says, God shall enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be a slave to them. Right? There's that prophecy. I believe that's the prophecy to what's going on in Israel right now. But the word right here, where it gets interesting, is when it says, "May God but the word right there wasn't enlarged. The Hebrew word is patah. And patah does mean deceive. It says, may God deceive Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, which is right now. The Ashkenaz are dwelling in the tents of Shem, and Canaan be a slave to them. And what's happening right now is it's talking about the Palestinians right there, because these are different versions, but that's but I believe that's what's happening right now. The Palestinians are the Canaanites right there. So you use process of elimination, that would make Japheth the Ashkenaz. That would make then there's Shem, because the Bible didn't even say Shem would be dwelling in his own tents, and Canaan, that would be Palestine. So I believe that's how it's going down. And sorry for this detour, y'all. I want to get back to the lesson, but I'm gonna say patah means deception. Patah means deception. Deception. Okay. Let me. I know we all have our own opinion. You're welcome to it, and you're welcome to have that opinion on my channel. Okay, even though we disagree, but I'm just here to explain it for the audience too. Okay. It says, yeah. So the word patah does mean deception right here. The Hebrew word right here, patah, can mean deception, right? Yes, the Hebrew, though its meaning also encompasses entice, see, the word Hebrew patah can mean deception, though its meaning also encompasses entice, persuade, seduce, and allure, depending on context. It describes the act of opening someone up, whether for sinister purposes like deceit or manipulation, or for gracious ones such as God's own enticement. So it can mean entice, persuade. See, you can say it in a lot of different ways. It says, remember Genesis 9:27. You can say God shall entice Japheth, God shall persuade, God shall seduce, God shall allure. But it also can mean deceive. God shall deceive Japheth, Ashkenaz. He shall dwell what? In the tents of Shem, and Canaan, Palestine, shall be his servant, right? What was that one? Where's that prophecy about he shall dwell? Okay, here we go. I'm finna say this real quick. Hey, yeah, even though, he says Israel, he won't let Israel take over the West Bank, but the thing is, Oscar, that it don't matter what Trump say, because Gaza is under God's judgment right now. I'll show you a verse in a second, but Gaza is technically under God's judgment right now. And he said Gaza will be abandoned, and they will be wiped out. So Gaza will perish. So it's clear to see through Bible prophecy that Gaza is gonna, regardless of what anyone says, that Gaza's finna be gone. They're under God's judgment, right? So right here it says, and the bastard shall what? Dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. All Philistines means is just land of Palestine, right? So right here you say a bastard shall dwell in there. So right now, you remember how this lines up with Japheth shall dwell in. My bad. It says Genesis 9:27. God shall Patah, deceive Japheth. He shall what? He shall dwell. And then here and dwell in it. Here how you see how dwell is used again right here. This is future prophecy. It said Genesis 9:27 connects to Zechariah 9:6 here. It says God shall what? He shall dwell. It says Japheth shall what? He shall dwell in the tents of Shem. God didn't say Shem was going to dwell in the tents of Shem. He said Japheth will dwell in the tents of Shem. He said God shall what? Patah, deceive Japheth. What? He shall dwell in the tents of Shem. And Canaan shall be his servant, right? So and it says right here, it says, and a bastard shall what? Dwell in Ashdod. So right here you saying, God is saying, you know, that whoever's dwelling in Ashdod, modern day Ashdod is controlled by Israel, right? He says, and a bastard what? Shall dwell in Ashdod, and I what? Will cut off the pride of the who? The Palestinians, right? So you got a certain type of people that are punishing the Palestinians like God said would happen. That's exactly what is happening over there right now, right? They're being like so all Philistine means is the land of Palestine. That's all Philistine means, just land of Palestine. So and yeah, again, you got to admit, aren't they pride being cut off right now? Aren't the Palestinians' pride being cut off right now? Because Japheth dwells in the tents of Shem, dwells in Ashdod, and the Palestinians are getting humiliated. The Palestinians are getting their butt whooped all the time, and that's what's going on right here, right, and one more thing I'm gonna cover that I want to get back to what I was teaching tonight, but Let me get back to something here. Let's see. Okay, what was I gonna do? Oh yeah, Canaanites. Let's say, okay. You see this? We're using process of elimination here, okay? Okay, I asked, right, the chat. I asked right here. You see what I searched for right up here? You see, I asked it right here. I asked who are modern day Canaanites, and it says the modern people in Levant, modern people in Levant, particularly in Lebanon and Palestine, can trace a significant portion of their genetic ancestry to ancient Canaanites who lived in the region during the Bronze Age. While there are no direct cultural groups that identify as Canaanites today, DNA studies show a strong genetic link indicating that the ancient Canaanite, because DNA don't lie, the ancient Canaanite population did not disappear, but rather assimilated into subsequent population in Levant, including the Phoenicians, Israel, and the later populations, right? So, I mean, I remember I saw some part that said they were like 80%. We were doing that part that said Lebanon Palestinians also show. It says Palestinians. No, Lebanon has a lot of it. Lebanon studies have shown that present-day Lebanese are largely direct descendants of the Canaanites, with some researchers finding over 90% of their ancestors can be traced to ancient Palestinian people. Also show a strong genetic connection to ancient Canaanites, where DNA studies indicate significant in Canaanite and other ancient Levite histories. Right? See, See, so that's what's going on here, right? So as you can see, the Canaanites, like Palestinians, can be considered the Canaanites, showing that Genesis 9:27 and what was that verse again? And that verse that that showed that they're them dwelling up in Ashdod, right? So you see what's going on here. So they're basically technically, because of those two prophecies I just showed you in the Bible, showing that they both fighting over land that doesn't belong to neither of them. Okay? I'm going to show you, I think I need to show you one, let's say, Cush, islands of the sea in that day. Let's see. So, as you can see, when God regathers his people, when God regathers his people from the end days, right? One of the places he regathers us from is the land called Cush, right? And Cush is where? In Africa. Cush means Ethiopia, but it's a translation, but I believe it's talking about ancient Ethiopia, so I believe it's talking about Sudan, like beyond the rivers of Sudan. It says Cush. Some says Ethiopia. Well, but anyway, the point is it's going to be in Africa, right? So it says Isaiah 11 through 12 says that this passage states that the Lord will reach out his hand to recover the remnant of his people from various regions, including Cush, and gather them from the four corners of the earth. So there's only one people that have been scattered all over the earth that went into captivity. And they went into Cush too. He said one of the places he's going to gather them from is Africa, which is Cush. So that's how we know that who the real Israelites are. So there's that. But I know you have your opinion, but you're welcome to have it on my channel. I'm just showing you what I believe, okay? Okay, let's get back to the lesson tonight, folks. Just thought I'd answer that right quick. Okay, anyway, back to what I was saying. A brief historical background on immigration and gathering. For centuries, there was a Jewish community in Ethiopia, the Beta Israel, with its own customs, liturgy, and traditions. In the late 20th century, Israel began to recognize the Beta Israel under law of return. Oops, let me get back up here. Okay, law of return. Though there was debate within rabbinic and political circles about their Jewish status, several major operations airlifted large numbers of Ethiopian Jews to Israel under difficult conditions. Operation Moses, 1984 to 1985, convert evacuation of thousands via Sudan. Operation so right here they brought a lot of the Israeli Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews brought a lot of Beta Israel Jews to Israel, like because they try to impress God, right? They brought a lot of Ethiopian Jews to Israel. And then the other time they did it was called Operation Joshua, or Operation Sheba, related operations. Operation Solomon in 1991, in about 36 hours, 14,325 Ethiopian Jews were flown to Israel. Later efforts continued to bring over the Falasha Mora, those of Ethiopian descent who had converted to Christianity and later wished to return to Judaism. Once in Israel, the Ethiopian Jews community hoped for full integration. Hold up. Damn, I'm sorry, my stream is starting to slow a bit. Okay, it says over decades they faced many forms of discrimination and social. Okay, oops, where am I at? My bad. Brief historical background, immigration. Okay, for centuries there was a Jewish community in Ethiopia, the Beta Israel, and its own customs. In late 20th century, is it recognized the Beta Israel under the law of return, though there was the debate within rabbinic and political circles about. Oh, I did it again. Sorry, y'all. I keep getting lost. Okay, so we got Operation Moses happened in 1984. They brought a lot of Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, to Israel. So it must be pretty serious. So they are Israel, proving and showing prophecy true from the Bible there. Then we got Operation Solomon in 1991. In about 36 hours, 14,325 Ethiopian Jews were flown in by Israel. Later efforts continued to bring over the Falasha, those of Ethiopian who had converted Christianity and later wished to return to Judaism. Once in Israel, the Ethiopian Jewish community hoped for full integration and equal standing as fellow Jews, but their experience had been mixed, with many challenges arising, especially racism, discrimination, and systematic inequality. So they brought them to Israel only to persecute them and be racist towards them. So they bring them out of poverty, out of Sudan. They bring the Ethiopian Jews. They brought them to Israel, and instead of treating them with like human beings and with love and respect that the God of the universe will want them to do, like to His chosen people, they persecute them. Right? It says major forms of discrimination and challenges faced. Here are the main areas in which Ethiopian Jews in Israel have faced racial or ethnic discrimination or disadvantages, along with some evidence and cases. Questioning of Jewishness and religious status. Some in the rabbinic establishment question. The Ashkenazi, the Ashkenazi Jews are questioning them like being real Israelite. Let's see. Some rabbinic establishment question whether the Beta Israel were authentic Jews or whether they needed to undergo conversion or validation procedures. This can complicate. Let me see if I can bring this over. Oops, let me bring this over, son. Okay. It says blood donation and scandal. In the 1990s, it was revealed. So some of this stuff I'm even learning now for myself because I didn't look at everything I asked the chat right here. But we're going to look into this, okay? So it says in the 1990s, it was revealed that the Israeli National Blood Services, Megan David Adam, had been discarding blood donations from Ethiopian immigrants or making them for disposal. Justified an official statement about higher rates of certain infectious markers. Yeah, that's say mean-spirited doing that. But they live in a better society, so they should have better blood since they living with all that technological advancements, wouldn't you think? Okay. Okay, and it says the incident caused great outrage and and of institutional distrust and racial prejudice was formed to investigate the policy. Forced, coerced birth control contraceptive practice claims. Now, this is really mean spirited as well, like sterilizing the black Israelite women. It says so they can't have babies. So we got, it says around 2012. Sorry, it's slowing up again. It says around. Okay, it says around 2012 there were reports and accusations that many Ethiopian women were being offered, given long-term contraceptives, Depo-Provera, sometimes without full informed consent, or presented as condition for immigration or state benefits. The claims sparked national debate, public investigation, and eventually an order for practice in cases of consent doubts. So that was horrible. Poverty, underemployment, economic marginalization. Multiple studies and reports show that Ethiopian Israelis are among the most economically disadvantaged Jewish people in Israel. High rates of poverty, lower incomes, large to unemployment, challenges in rural versus urban, and limited upward mobility. Some schools, especially semi-private religious ones, refuse to accept students of Ethiopian origin. This education, school placement, discrimination in schools. This exclusion affects academic opportunity and social stigma. So we get it everywhere. Like, that's one thing we can always count on. You know, our people, everywhere we go, we get persecuted by everybody. They're supposed to be the children of God, but they're persecuting our people over there. Ain't that sad? Housing and spatial segregation. Many Ethiopian immigrants were placed in peripheral neighborhoods, often with fewer services, infrastructure, poor living conditions. This reinforces isolation, limits access and networks, and contributes to unequal. Let me see. Let's see. Feelings, insecurity, alienation, and collective trauma. Policing arrest. It says there have been numerous incidents, allegations, and protests about. Oops, I read the wrong thing. This reinforces social isolation, limits access and networks, and contributes to inequality. My bad. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. Police arrest, police violence, brutality. There have been numerous incidents, allegations, and protests about police violence or discriminatory policing towards Ethiopian Israelis. For example, in April 2015, a uniformed Ethiopian Israeli soldier was allegedly beaten by a police officer. The incident was caught on video and ignited protests. In July 2019, protests erupted after a young Ethiopian Israeli, Solomon Teka, was shot and killed by unalived by an off-duty police officer in Haifa. Community activists note overrepresentation in arrest statistic relative to their population share, higher stop and frisk rates. These incidents intensify mistrust of state, feelings of insecurity, alienation, and let me see. Many social stigma, everyday racism, discrimination. Many Ethiopian Israelis report discrimination in everyday life. Being seen as outsiders, stereotyped, treated as less Israeli, facing prejudice from other Jews, especially lighter-skinned Jews. This affects identity, self-esteem, mental cohesion and intergroup relations, government efforts, protest policy responses. Over time, the state has responded with commissions, policy reforms, and public promises, affirmative action, and dialogue, protests, and activism by Ethiopian Israelis have been central to pushing for accountability and change. Key moments, protests, and turning point. 1996 blood donation scandal. Public revelation that Megan David Adam had discarded Ethiopian origin blood donations led to public shock and government inquiry. 2012 protests. After a video surfaced showing two policemen beating an Ethiopian soldier, large protests erupted. Ethiopian Israelis marched to the keenness demanding justice and equality. 2015 protests and activism. The 2015 police beating of an Ethiopian soldier caught on video led to mass production demanding government action. July 2019 protests sparked by killing of Solomon Teka by a police officer. Thousands of Ethiopian Israelis protested, blocking streets in multiple cities. Government response. In response to public pressure, the Israeli government has launched an initiative to reduce discrimination, improve policing practice, and promote integration. But many critics argue change has been slow and inconsistent. Oh, wow, that reminds me of another place. Wink, wink. Prejudice within Jewish society, community. Some sectors of Israeli society held implicit or explicit views that Ethiopian Jews were less modern, less educated, or less capable of full integration, or that their Judaism was somehow suspect. Powerful dynamics, political neglect, and marginalization. Because Ethiopian Israelis have had less political power historically, their concerns sometimes receives less attention or slower responses from government agencies. This making it harder to redress grievances, ongoing challenges, recent developments, and debates. It says the disparities persist. Despite decades of integration efforts, Ethiopian Israelis continue to lag in many social economic indicators. Income and employment, higher education, housing, etc. Policing and public safety. Many in the community continue to report discriminatory policing discriminatory policing, over policing, and lack of accountability for abuses. Younger Ethiopian Israelis, especially those born in Israel, often struggle with identity between their Ethiopian heritage and Israeli society. They may face discrimination at school, in peer groups, or in public spaces. Cause of reform and activism. Civil society groups, NGOs, Ethiopians, Israeli organizations continue to push for systematic reforms, better policing oversight, affirmative action, and recognition of the state's role in perpetuating inequities. Trust and reconciliation. Because of many past and ongoing injustices, there is skepticism in parts of the community toward state institutions. Building trust, ensuring transparency, and showing consistent accountability remain major challenges. Megan. Hey, aka Black Power Puff joined us, y'all. On the other hand, the persistence of racial, cultural, and social biases shows that Jewish unity does not automatically guarantee equality. Without deliberate and sustained corrective efforts, historic prejudice and structural inequities can persist under the surface. The struggle of Ethiopian Israelis reminds us that inclusion must be more than symbolic. It must involve real changes in how institutions operate, how resources are distributed, how justice is administered, and how communities see each other. Okay, it asks me if you like, I can prepare a timeline of key discriminatory incidences or focus on education, health, or political efforts in more depth. Which would you prefer? I asked it, tell me more about the Bible prophecy, how it relates and fulfills prophecy of God regathering Israel out of Cush. That's a thoughtful and historical rich question. To make sure I give you the most accurate and balanced explanation, can you clarify something first? Are you asking for religious biblical interpretation of prophecy, e.g. from passages like Isaiah, Zephaniah, or Psalms, as many Ethiopian Jews and some Christians view it? Or are you looking for a historical perspective on how modern Ethiopian allied immigration to Israel has been understood by some groups as fulfilling those prophecies? These can overlap, but focus is slightly different. Like religious looks at scripture from beyond the rivers of Cush, which just means Ethiopia. Cush is a land in Africa, and it explains prophetic meaning. Historical fulfillment examines how modern events like Operation Moses and Solomon were interpreted as prophetic fulfillment. And I asked them to put both in, to include both. Okay? It says the biblical prophecy regathering out of Cush. The Bible contains several prophecies about God regathering the exiles of Israel from distant lands before the Messianic era. Among these lands, Cush is specifically mentioned multiple times. Cush in biblical geography refers to roughly to the region south of Egypt, often associated with modern-day Sudan and Ethiopia. So Sudan and Ethiopia is located where, folks? Up in Africa. So when God said he's going to regather his people, his chosen people, out of the land of Cush, he's talking about places in Africa. That's where he's going to regather them from. And here are prophetic passages. Zephaniah 3:10. This is my favorite Bible scripture because this has so much poetry in it, and it makes me think about everything we've been through as a people, like being persecuted, racial discrimination, being called the N-word, Karens picking at us when we just trying to enjoy our day, you know, the lifetime racist judges Trump put into office that's going to be deciding the fate of our black brothers and sisters, or our Israelite brothers and sisters, you know, man. Because the persecution, oh man, it's coming. It's gonna get real bad because we got lifetime racist judges that Trump put into office, and we got the racist police officers that he said he giving complete immunity to he giving the KKK and the alt-right and the Richard Spencer types and the Charlie Kirk types permission to come into the police departments and take and unalive us, right? You know, it's just the truth. But, you know, and, you know, not that I don't celebrate what happened to Charlie Kirk. I hate that anybody gets loses their life. So I don't support that whatsoever. Like, I'd rather we talk things out instead of trying to take each other out like that. You know, I wish we should have a debate because all it did was make things worse and raise up the tensions. So I hate that this happened, you know. Still, but anyway, it says context. Zephaniah prophesies about the end times when God will restore Israel, purify the nations, and regather his scattered people. Yes, interpretation. Beyond the rivers of Cush is widely understood as Ethiopia and regions of south of Egypt. Some Jewish and Christian commentators interpret this verse as predicting the return of Jews from Ethiopia to the land of Israel. So it's so many clues that the Israelites are black, but it ain't going. But you know they're not gonna they're not gonna say that though. Like, but you got here they are. They look vastly. They got different phenotypes. Like they look completely different from each other. But here you have them saying that they're gonna God's gonna regather them out of the land of lands that are in Africa. He gonna gather them out and bring them back to Israel. And that's some hope that we're looking forward to, right? And then they said a lot of descendants of slaves came from those areas. They did, they just did. And I know a Christian is mentioned 3 times in the Bible. So it just kind of breaks my heart that Christians won't admit that just like Christian is mentioned 3 times in the Bible, you got Cush being mentioned in the Bible, and God saying He's going to regather them out of there. And some people try to say, well, they're descendants of Ashkenaz, and I'm like, I asked ChatGPT here. I asked them. I said, "Is there any point in history where Ashkenazi Jews, were they in Africa and were they persecuted there? Was there ever a point where they were ever significantly up in Africa at any point in history?" And it told me no. So it just shows the clues about what's going on here. It says, Isaiah 11:12, it says, "In that day the Lord will reach out His hand a second time to reclaim the surviving remnant of His people from Assyria." Because I heard there's black Israelites in all these lands I'm about to read you, right? There's remnants of Assyria, from Lower Egypt, from Upper Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, excuse me, from Babylon, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. He will raise a banner for nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the 4 quarters of the earth. The 4 quarters of the earth. It ain't like he didn't say he was just gonna gather them from Europe, right? So that's amazing how all of a sudden God just regathers the Israelites out of Europe only, but He's not gonna regather them from the other nations at once. Why is He doing it that right then? But then He does it a second time. Then He does it like a third time to get the rest of the people out in the 90s. That makes no sense. That would be technically a third time. God said He will bring Israel back a second time. That sounds like a contradiction. But ChatGPT won't tell me that, because it'll make them because the truth will start to be revealed, right? But it is what it is. Okay. It says Cush is listed among the lands from God will reclaim His people. Fulfillment view. Many believe that this refers to modern Aliyah immigration waves, including the Ethiopian Jewish airlifts, as part of the second gathering. But that don't make sense of it being part of the second gathering. That makes no sense. How is that part of the second gathering? They say it's part of the second gathering, but wouldn't that be technically the third gathering? And then and notice how when they went back to Israel, that not all up in the 1948, when they went back to Israel, they didn't bring nobody else with them. They only brought Europeans. And God said He was going to bring His people back a second time from these lands. From Africa, right? He said He's going to bring His people back for a second time from Africa, right? But yet, wouldn't that be the second time? Wouldn't the second time technically be Europe? He said, I'll bring my people back a second time. He says from Cush, and he mentions all these lands, and he says from the islands of the sea. But he didn't mention bringing them out of Japheth's territory, out of Europe. He didn't say that. You see how what a contradiction is? Wait, he's bring, like when they came back to Israel in 1948, they consider that the second time, right? And the second time continuing from there into the 1990s and the 80s, when they brought the Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel, to Israel. That makes no sense because God said he's gonna regather them a second time. Notice how he didn't mention Europe when he said that in Isaiah. He did not mention Israel. He did not mention Europe. He did not mention Europe. He said, when I regather my chosen people, he said, I'm going to regather them out of certain places. But he specifically said he was going to regather them out of Cush, right? And from the islands of the sea, and for the four corners of the earth, he's going to regather his people. But notice how he didn't mention Europe. So this gives further clues that they can't be the real chosen people that God is telling us about. You know? I mean, because that is a huge contradiction right there. It says, Princess shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia, Cush, shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. This poetically portrays Ethiopia reaching out toward God, often interpreted by both Jewish and Christian teachers as similar Ethiopian people joining in worship and restoration. Some people try to say when it said that talking about like them trying to fight God, like their hand is against God. I actually heard people say that before, but right here it says the opposite. Prince shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia, Cush shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia, Cush shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. This verse poetically portrays Ethiopia reaching out toward God, often interpreted by both Jewish and Christian teachers as similar Ethiopian peoples joining the worship. But I believe it's many Ethiopian Jews themselves see their Elijah return as a spiritual fulfillment of the verse. So you got the Israelites. You got the Israelites that are in Cush that are coming out, right? They're coming out of Cush. Not that it's saying that the Cushites are the Israelites, just that the Israelites that were scattered there. Because it said, from beyond the rivers of Cush, my scattered people. So that goes to show God's not saying that Ethiopians are Jews. He's saying the black Israelites that were scattered to Ethiopia are Jews. That's what God is saying right there. God's regathering. Prophets repeatedly speak of God bringing his people home from distant lands, including Cush. Beyond the rivers, Cush represents one of the most distant known regions to ancient Israel, showing the global scope of regathering, worship, and restoration. These prophecies are not just about physical return, but spiritual renewal and inclusion of distant communities into God's covenant people. Historical fulfillment, Ethiopian Aliyah. Beginning in the late 20th century, thousands of Ethiopian Jews were brought to Israel from dramatic rescue operations. Many Jews and Christians worldwide have seen these events as the literal fulfillment of the biblical passage. But how is that possible? Because God's saying only when they get their hearts right will he bring them back to the land, right? But they already brought them over there, so them bringing the Israelites over there early just knows that it's not biblical. Discovering and recognition of Beta Israel. Beta Israel, House of Israel, community in Ethiopia, preserved Jewish practices for centuries in isolation, observing Shabbat, dietary laws, circumcision, and biblical festivals. In 1975, Israel's chief rabbinate officially recognized Beta Israel as descendants of the ancient Israelites, making them eligible under the law of return. So Beta Israel means what? House of Israel. That's what Beta Israel means. It means House of Israel. Community Ethiopia preserved Jewish practices for centuries, and Operation Moses. Operation Moses. Thousands of Ethiopian Jews fled civil war and famine trekking through Sudan, Israel, with U.S. support, airlifted 8,000 Ethiopian Jews secretly to Israel. This operation was seen by many as modern Exodus, prophecy of regathering from Cush. Many Ethiopian Jews viewed this as divinely orchestrated, fulfilling Zephaniah 3:10, from beyond the rivers of Cush. Operation Solomon. Amid the collapse of Ethiopia's government, Israel executed Operation Solomon, a massive 36-hour airlift transporting 14,325 Ethiopian Jews on 34 planes, some specially stripped of seats to fit more people. This is one of the largest and fastest massive migrations in modern history. Some planes carried over 1,000 passengers, setting world records. Many Israeli rabbis and Christian observers cited Isaiah 11:11 directly during and after this operation, seeing it as clear sign of prophecy being fulfilled in modern times. Continue olive. Smaller operations have continued, especially bringing the Falashah, Murrah, Ethiopian descendants of Jews who converted to Christianity generations ago and later sought to the return to Judaism. This ongoing process is viewed as the final stage of regathering the remnant of Cush. For many Ethiopian Jews themselves, the Aliyah wasn't just political, it was deeply spiritual. They saw themselves as fulfilling God's promise to bring them back to Zion. Community elders preserved oral tradition of promised return of Jerusalem. Some sang psalms and prophetic verses during their journeys. For many Jews in Israel and Christians globally, these events were interpreted as a living sign of biblical prophecy unfolding, strengthened. So Christians and Jews consider this prophecy. So I mean, the Ethiopian Jews are confirmed. So why is the Ashkenazi Jews? Why are the Jews persecuting the Israelites over there? In fact, why is Palestinian? Why is the black Palestinians? Excuse me, y'all. Why are Palestinians being racist towards the black Palestinians that were descendants of slaves, which I believe are the black Israelites as well? Why are the Palestinians persecuting them as well? You see how that's just wrong. Like even though the Palestinians are being persecuted by the Ashkenazi Israelis over there, the Ashkenazi Jews, while they're being persecuted by them, the Palestinians are still finding a way to persecute the black Palestinians that are over there, which I believe are the real Jews. They're just the same as the Beta Israel. They're just the same as the black Jews over there. Why are they being persecuted by the Palestinians? Like, it's amazing. You would think they would understand them. You think the Palestinians would understand what the black Jews are going through, but no. Even despite them being persecuted, they still find time to persecute the black Israelites. And then what's really sad is they voted for Trump, who Trump said he wanted to turn into a beachfront property. He wanted to turn Israel into a beachfront property and send all of them out, and yet they voted for him anyway. Even the Palestinians were so racist here in America that they voted for their own destruction. And remember the Bible prophesied that Gaza shall be abandoned, that Palestine shall perish. All that stuff that the Bible says, prophecies about, which is happening right before our eyes. It's happening right before we're in the midst of that. It's happening right before our eyes, folks. And that's amazing. So we're being so sum it up, y'all. We're being persecuted both by the Israeli government and the Ashkenazi government. By the Israeli government and the Palestinians. So it look like they both are fighting over land that doesn't belong to neither of them. So I say, if you got you a good job, and if you making good money, and if you got you a good job and you go to a good school, do not pick a side. Do not say, "Oh, I'm for the Palestinians." "Oh no, I'm for the for Israel. God is telling, I say don't pick a side. Keep your job. Keep your six-figure job. Don't pick a side. Be smart about this, y'all. Don't pick a side. They are both fighting over land that doesn't belong to neither of them. They don't care about us. The real apartheid in the Middle East is the fact that black people are still being enslaved all over the Middle East. That's the real apartheid. Black people are still being enslaved in Saudi Arabia. When you go to Palestine, they call you Al-Abid. That's A-L-A-B-I-D. They might as well be calling you the N-word when they call you that when you go over there. There are black Americans that went over to Palestine. They called the N-word, and they called them Al-Abid, which means slave, the slave in Arabic. It means the slave in Arabic. So they both hate us. So do not pick a side. I feel sorry for the kids, but they are under God's judgment as a nation. They are under God's judgment. Palestine is under God's judgment, and they're being beaten by people that aren't even the real people. They're both fighting over land that doesn't belong to neither of them. They're both fighting over land that doesn't belong to neither of them. Okay. Says prophecy of Isaiah, Zephaniah, and Psalms predicted the regathering of Israelites from Cush, Ethiopia, Sudan. Isaiah. And they said a large part of black slaves, of American slaves, came from that area. It came from the area of where it says this area was peopled by the Jews. It said a lot of people came from that area of the slave coast of West Africa. This return highlights God's covenant faithfulness, the global scope Jewish diaspora, and the complex interplay between prophecy and modern history. Hey, are you still there, Oscar Ferguson? There's something else I would like to show you if you're still there. Are you still there, Oscar? That's an escalate and very deep. Okay, let's see. I asked it, is there a contradiction with prophecy? God said only when the descendants of Israel does the right thing and follow him will he rescue out of captivity. And yet Beta Israel, also other Jews, is being brought to Israel. Does this prophecy line up correctly? That's an excellent and very deep question, and you're right to notice that the Bible gives multiple kinds of regathering prophecy, some of which appear to have conditions attached when Israel returns. Then he will gather them, and others that sound more unconditional. God himself will bring them back from the ends of the earth. See, right here it says unconditional. This tension isn't new. Jewish and Christian commentators have discussed it for centuries. Let's break it down carefully so you can see how different traditions reconcile. A conditional regathering based on repentance. Some passages clearly says God will regather his people after they repent and return to him. In Deuteronomy 30, verse 1 through 3, it says, when you and your children return to the Lord your God and obey him with all your heart and with all your soul, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where he scattered you. Here repentance comes first, then gathering follows. This is Leviticus chapter 26, 40 through 42. It's another one. It says, but if they will confess their sins, then I will regather my covenant with Jacob, and I will bring them back. God promised to regather is triggered by genuine repentance and obedience. These passages have led many rabbis to teach that the final Messianic restoration will happen only when Israel turns back to God. So there you go. So and when you see what's going on over there in the land of Israel with the the LGBTQ stuff, and they're just defiling our land. Like most of them are atheists. Them over there are atheists, and yet God brought them back. Maybe you have God right here saying only when they do right by Him will He bring them back, right? Okay. Before there's one more thing I would like to do. There's more I would like to read. Maybe should do a part 2 next week. I don't know, but I was hoping to do a different Bible study next week. But I guess I could do. I guess I can do one. Maybe I could just do a part 2 of this next week. I don't know. It is. God explicitly says, I think both can be right here. It says he's doing it for his name's sake. Yeah, I think he's doing this for his name's sake too. But he's gonna make sure we get it right though. He's doing it for his name's sake, and we got to get it right too for him to save us, right? Do not be afraid. Okay, that's one thing I want to ask the chat right quick. Let me see here. Let me see. God mentions when God says when God mentions to Abraham in Genesis, that when God mentions to Abraham in Genesis that when God mentions in Abraham in Genesis that Abraham's descendants will be enslaved and mistreated in a land they know not, and eventually regather them. Is he talking about the second? Is he talking about the first captivity, or the second final captivity? Because this question's been on my mind here because I just want to prove something. So let me try that. You're referring to in Genesis 13:15 when God tells Abraham, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers, and I believe it's talking about America right here, y'all, when it says Genesis 15:13-16, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation. Meaning, it's not like he's going to punish America. That they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. So he said, what really emphasized this when it says enslaved and mistreated there, because we weren't slaves for the whole 400 years we've been here. We was only slaves for 200 and I think it was 48 years in America. We were slaves. Then after we had 100 years of Jim Crow, and then we had more persecution and all that stuff, right? Only then when God said, when our years are up, He's going to slowly take the curses off of us and put them on our enemies, right? So that's what I'm thinking. But hopefully it says it's talking about the second captivity. Let's break this down, because our interpreters have seen both historical first captivity, final captivity, and implications in this prophecy. Both Jews and Christians come to understand this prophecy is referring to primarily to Israel's slavery in Egypt. So I figured they was going to do that. They think it's talking about the first captivity, but I think it's talking about the final second captivity. Through Isaiah settled in Egypt during Joseph's, through Isaac and Jacob settled into Egypt during Joseph's. They eventually became enslaved. Exodus 1:8-14. After 400 years, Exodus, God brought them out of through the Exodus, probably with great possessions. Exodus. This fits the timeline of secret strangers, enslaved, mistreated. But it said a language that you don't understand. But then when they understand the Egyptians, like even says, after the Exodus clearly applies to the Egyptian captivity in Exodus, and descendants will send. Has not yet reached this. So they just, as well as Christians, see this passage not only as a historical process, but also a pattern that repeats it in later history, including Babylonian and Rome, and the end time regathering. So many Jewish sages, as well as Christian theologians, see this passage not only as historical prophecy, but also foundational pattern that repeats in later Jewish history, including Babylonian exile, Roman exile, and end times regathering. Some Rabbinic traditions view Egypt as a prototype of later exiles. Ultimate says from Christian perspective, they think it's Egypt and Exodus. The second one thinks is ultimate fulfillment and future regathering of Israel, person worldwide. Directly, so Genesis 15 is referring directly. Genesis 15 is referring to Egyptian captivity and Exodus. That is plain historical meaning. Indirectly or typical, many interpreters believe foreshadows a larger pattern of Israel's suffering, eventually regathering from later dispersions, including the final regathering before the Masonic era. This is consistent with how biblical prophecy often works: a near-term fulfillment, Egypt, and far-term pattern, ultimate fulfillment. Some Jewish and Christian groups view modern Aliyah, immigration of Jews back to Israel, including the return of the final regathering foretold in Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Zephaniah. it says the double layer. The double layer is typical of biblical prophecy. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I want to say thank you to Oscar Ferguson and Black Power Puff for commenting. And I thank all of you for commenting as well. I mean, for joining the reaction as well. Just remember to live every day in victory. And, of course, hearing the victory music, victory fanfare. Till next time, dudes and dudettes. And we are out.